Taking advantage of her midday break, Alina decided to stop by home and check on her ailing husband. She quietly turned the key in the door, careful not to make a sound, but what she heard next made her knees buckle. From behind the door, she caught a muffled voice, his voice speaking on the phone. And with each word, a devastating truth unraveled, one she never expected to hear. Welcome to our channel. If you enjoy the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for your support, and now, enjoy. Monday morning had begun like any other for Aliona, busy, rushed, and wrapped in the familiar rhythm of city life. Sunlight filtered softly through the sheer curtains, bathing their small but cozy kitchen in golden light. Outside the window, the city buzzed to life, honking cars, hurried footsteps, distant conversations. Aliona stirred her coffee while glancing anxiously at the clock. Today was no ordinary day. She was minutes away from a make-or-break presentation, one that could determine her long-awaited promotion. "Alexei, have you seen my blue folder? The one with the documents?" She called toward the bedroom as she adjusted the lapel of her blazer. Her husband appeared in the doorway, impeccably dressed, his hair damp and freshly combed. Even after 3 years of marriage, he still managed to take her breath away. He walked up to her with casual charm and kissed her on the cheek. "I think you left it in the living room," he said with a smile, nervous about the big pitch. Aliona nodded, her heart warming at the concern in his voice, or at least what she believed was concern. "Of course I'm nervous," she replied, pouring her coffee into a thermos. "Igor Pavlovich hinted that if I nail it, I could be promoted to department head." "You'll do great," Alexei said, sipping his own coffee. "I believe in you. By the way, I might have a big deal with some French clients. If it goes through, maybe we can finally take that trip to the Alps you've been dreaming about." Aliona smiled, but something inside her faltered. As usual, he shifted the conversation to his own ambitions, barely acknowledging hers. She brushed the thought aside. Then her phone rang. She frowned. The caller ID showed it was her mother-in-law, Nina Sergeyevna. Odd. She usually called in the evening. "Good morning, Nina Sergeyevna," Aliona answered, exchanging a quick glance with Alexei, but it wasn't her mother-in-law's voice on the line. A woman introduced herself as Vera, a neighbor. "I'm calling because your mother-in-law has been hospitalized," the woman said, her voice urgent. "She had a stroke. The doctors say it's serious. She'll need constant care." "The kitchen," spun Aliona, wordlessly handed the phone to Alexei. His face shifted instantly, first shock, then fear, then confusion. Emotions flickered rapidly across his features. "I need to go to her immediately," he said after hanging up. "But I have a critical meeting with investors today. I can't cancel." Aliona stared at him. His mother was fighting for her life and he was thinking about a business meeting. "I'll go," she said softly. "Today is my presentation, but Natasha knows the project inside and out. She can take over." Alexei exhaled in relief. Quickly, to isolate for a man whose mother was in critical condition. "Are you sure? What about your promotion?" Alina placed her cup on the table and wrapped her arms around him. "Your mother needs someone now. I'll take a few days off and go. You can't abandon your project. I understand that." He held her tightly. "What would I do without you?" he whispered into her hair. "I'll come as soon as I finish with the French deal. A week at most. Then I'll fly every weekend, I promise." At the office, the usual clatter of keyboards and murmurs filled the air. Natasha, Alina's colleague and close friend, took one look at her and raised a brow. "You look like someone just told you the world's ending," she said. Walking over, Aliona quickly explained the situation. Natasha folded her arms, her expression hardening. "You're seriously going to drop everything and leave? But this presentation, it's your shot." "We have no choice," Aliona replied. "His mother needs help." "Why can't he take time off?" Natasha asked. Bluntly, "Why is it always you who sacrifices?" "Because his deal is crucial for the company," Aliona said. But even as she spoke, her inner voice whispered, "So is your presentation." They had worked for 2 years on this contract. "I can handle it," Natasha said gently. "But listen, to me, my mom always told me, if a woman keeps sacrificing everything for her husband, one day she'll wake up and realize there's nothing left to give. Be careful, Aliona." Later, standing in Igor Pavlovich's spacious sunlit office, Aliona felt as if the walls were closing in. The man with the piercing gaze listened intently as she explained. "Family emergency, you say?" he asked. His tone unreadable. ChatGPT said. He tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the table before speaking. His tone cool, almost indifferent. "How long do you plan to be away?" "The doctors estimate about 2 months," Alina replied, forcing herself to sound steady and composed. "Natasha will handle today's presentation," she added. "She's fully briefed." The director shook his head with quiet disapproval. "Let me remind you, there are no irreplaceable people in business. In 2 months, your position may no longer be available." His words dropped like lead into Alina's heart. Everything she had poured herself into, every late night spent chasing success, could vanish. But then the image of her ailing mother-in-law, lying alone in a stark hospital room, silenced any second thoughts. "I understand the risk," Alina said firmly, "and I'm ready to accept it." The train station buzzed with the clamor of announcements, clattering wheels, and heartfelt goodbyes. Alina stood beside a train, her small suitcase at her feet. Opposite her stood Alexei, holding her hands. His face was etched with worry, but in his eyes flickered something else: relief. "I love you," he said, locking eyes with her. "And I'm so grateful for what you're doing for my family." "For our family," Alina smiled, swallowing the lump rising in her throat. "I love you too. Take care of yourself while I'm gone, and please eat something besides sandwiches, okay?" Alexei pulled her into a tight embrace, kissed her. "I promise I'll come as soon as I wrap things up with the French partners," he murmured. "After that, I'll visit every weekend. Keep me updated on how Mum's doing." "All right." She nodded, but something in his tone made her chest tighten. It felt like he was making promises he didn't intend to keep. The train slowly rolled away from the platform, carrying Alina toward the unknown. Rain trickled steadily in the quiet provincial town where her mother-in-law lived. Drops tapped against the roof of the taxi that drove her to a modest two-story house on the outskirts. Nina Sergeyevna lived on the first floor in a small but cozy apartment. Waiting near the entrance was an older woman holding an umbrella. "You must be Alina," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Vera, Nina's neighbor. We spoke on the phone." Alina gratefully shook the offered hand. "Nice to meet you, Vera. Thank you for looking after her." Vera's eyes scanned her kindly with a trace of sympathy that didn't go unnoticed. "Nina's in the city hospital. I'll take you there once you've dropped off your things," she said in a soft provincial accent. "She's in bad shape, poor thing, and Lisha, well, still hasn't come. Busy, I suppose." The last words carried a quiet bitterness that struck Alina deep. "How long have you known Nina Sergeyevna?" she asked later, as they sat on a bus heading to the hospital. "Going on 15 years now," Vera said, watching the rain-slicked streets blur past the window. "We used to be close. Planted gardens together, raised our kids side by side. But after Petya husband passed, she pulled away. Something broke in her. From then on, she poured everything into Lishenka, her whole world." Alina nodded, understanding. She knew the death of her father-in-law a decade ago had changed Nina. Alexei rarely spoke of it, but he once mentioned that his mother had become overprotective, too much so. "Does Ali visit her often?" Alina asked carefully. Vera gave a small, wry smile, one that said more than words. "Not really," she said, then added more gently, almost as if ashamed of the truth. "But he's a busy man, a big shot in the city. As Nina always says, she brags about him to everyone, even when he's been gone for half a year." The hospital air smelled sharply of antiseptic and medicine. Somewhere down the hallway, monitors beeped steadily, and the muted voices of staff echoed faintly. Nina Sergeyevna lay by the window, pale, diminished, tubes trailing from her arm. Alina's hand instinctively rose to her mouth as she tried to suppress the wave of emotion. The strong, independent woman she had known now looked fragile, defenseless. "Nina, look who's here," Vera said softly as she stepped up to the bed. Nina's eyes fluttered open. When they found Alina, she smiled faintly. The left side of her face barely moved. "You came," she managed to whisper. "Lisha. He has an important meeting," Alina said gently, taking Nina's hand in hers, "but he'll come in a few days. In the meantime, I'm here. I'll stay with you." In the hallway, Alina spoke with a tired-looking doctor, his eyes shadowed by long shifts and hard truths. "Her condition is stable, but recovery will take time," he said, flipping through the chart. Nearby, a nurse wheeled a squeaky cart. "Of medication passed, she'll need constant care after discharge, rehabilitation, physical therapy, speech training." "How long before she's fully recovered?" Alina asked, her voice quiet but resolute. Alina asked the question, though she already felt a coldness spreading inside her. The doctor looked up at her over his glasses. "With proper care, 6 months, minimum. And even then, I can't guarantee full recovery of her speech or mobility. Months, not 2, like Alexei had said. 6 months away from home, from work, from her normal life." Alina felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. The first days in the small provincial town passed in a haze of daily visits to the hospital. Nina Sergeyevna was recovering slowly, and after 2 weeks she was discharged now. Elena's world had become an endless cycle of massages, rehabilitation, exercises, cooking, laundry, cleaning, and pharmacy trips. Each day bled into the next, a perfect copy of the one before. Alexei called every evening. He asked how his mother was, gave updates about his negotiations with the French contract, but he never came, citing unexpected complications as the reason he couldn't visit in the first 2 weeks. "I know it's hard for you," he said gently, "but you're my strong girl. You can handle it. You promised you'd come," Lyosha, Elena said quietly. "It's been 2 weeks. This weekend for sure, I swear," he assured her. "Once I wrap up these documents Friday, I'll be there." Weeks became a month. Alexei still hadn't shown up. Twice, he cancelled last minute, first because of an emergency meeting, then a sudden business trip. Vera, a 60-year-old woman, with surprising energy and sharp eyes, helped Alina care for Nina. She brought warm pies and herbal teas, and over time the two women grew close. Alina often noticed Vera's concerned, knowing glances. "He won't come," Vera said one evening, as they cooked dinner together. "Lyosha's always been that way. Promises the world, then disappears. For Nina he's breaking her heart, and for you, wasting your life and your future, all for his convenience." Alina wanted to argue, to defend her husband, but the words wouldn't come. Deep down, she knew Vera might be right. That Saturday night, after Nina Sergeyevna had fallen asleep following her medication, Alina sat scrolling through social media. It was her only window into a life that used to be hers. On Marina's pager, former classmate, she saw a photo from a trendy restaurant back home. She was about to scroll past, but something made her stop. In the background by the window, unmistakable, Alexei. Next to him, a young blonde woman. Elena didn't recognize her. They were sitting close, shoulder to shoulder, thing. Their bodies turned toward each other in an intimate way. Alexei leaned in and whispered something. In the woman's ear, she smiled, wrapping a strand of her hair playfully around her finger. Elena's heart missed a beat, then began pounding furiously. Her mouth went dry. She zoomed in on the photo, praying she was wrong, that it was someone who only looked like him, but there was no mistake. It was him, her husband, the one who was supposedly in an urgent meeting. The wall clock ticked louder with each second, counting time as she stared at the glowing screen. Frozen, her first impulse was to call him, demand an explanation, but she didn't. Something stopped her fear, the dread of hearing a truth she wasn't ready to face. Or maybe it was the chilling realization this was just the beginning. A soft knock at the door pulled her back to the room. Vera stood on the threshold, holding a thermos. "I thought you might want some company," she said, walking in. "It's herbal tea. I picked it myself. Good for the heart when it's aching." One look at Elena's face, and she knew something was wrong. She sat down beside her without a word, patiently waiting. "He lied to me," Elena finally whispered, showing the photo. "Said he was at a meeting, but he was with her." Vera studied the image for a long time, then looked at Elena. The lines around her eyes deepened, pain surfacing from somewhere long buried. "Maybe there's an explanation," she said cautiously. "A business dinner." But her eyes said something else. Regret. Bitterness. A wound that had never quite healed. "You know something?" Elena said. It wasn't a question. It was a quiet demand. "Please, tell me the truth." Vera sighed, as though resigning herself to what had to be said. "I never wanted to interfere," she began softly, "but I know this family too well." She glanced toward the bedroom where Nina slept. When Petya died, Nina gave everything to Lyosha, her love, her time, her money for school. And he got used to it, got used to always getting what he wanted, without giving anything in return. She paused, searching for the right words. "I saw how he treated his women. Brought them home to meet his mother. Swore it was true love. Then a month later someone new, always forgiven. Nina still believes. He's just searching for happiness." Vera's voice hardened slightly. "But to me he never knew how to value what he had." In the stillness of the room, the clock kept ticking. Outside, the rain tapped softly against the windowpane. Elena sat motionless, the weight of truth pressing down on her chest. 3 years of building a life, and now, watching it collapse like a house of cards. "I'm going home," she whispered. She said firmly, "just for a couple of days. I need to check the apartment and talk to my husband. I want to see his face when I ask him for the truth." Vera looked at her closely, then gave a slow, silent nod. "I'll watch Nina. Just be ready. The truth can be bitter, like on the tongue, but healing." In the darkness of the room, Alyona lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling. She listened to the calm breathing of her sleeping mother-in-law in the next room. Tomorrow, she would take the morning train. And no matter what waited for her back home, she had to be ready to face the truth, no matter how painful it turned out to be. Maybe Alexei really did have a business meeting, she thought, turning over. But why did he say it was a conference? Why was that woman so close to him? Why were they laughing like that? The questions spun through her mind, refusing to let her rest. They wove themselves into a mosaic, one that chilled her to the bone. The morning train sped through bleak autumn landscapes. Alyona sat by the window watching raindrops trace crooked paths down the glass, like nature itself was weeping in secret. In the 3-hour journey, she imagined dozens of ways her conversation with Alexei might go, but none of them felt right. The city greeted her with a gray sky and drizzling rain. The taxi dropped her off at the entrance to a familiar building. For a moment it felt like everything was the same. She would walk in, and Alexei would greet her with that warm smile of his. But the image of that photo at the restaurant crashed into her like cold water. The normally noisy building felt eerily hollow. Her footsteps echoed up the stairwell. Alyona stopped in front of the apartment door and listened. Nothing. She reached for her keys but hesitated, and rang the bell instead. The last phone call with Alexei was still fresh in her mind. It had been clipped and tense. "I'll come tomorrow morning," she had told him. "Just need to pick up some things for your mom." "Okay," he replied after a pause. "I probably won't be home. Important meeting tomorrow." "On a Saturday?" she asked, surprised. "Urgent project," he said quickly. "You've got the keys. Take whatever you need." She hadn't brought up her suspicions. Not then. She wanted to see his face when she mentioned the blonde at the restaurant. That morning, just before boarding the train, she'd gotten a message from him, feeling sick. "I'll be home. Please grab some cold medicine." Something in her chest clenched. The lies were stacking up like kindling before a fire. Yesterday it was a crucial Saturday meeting. Today suddenly he's too ill to leave the house. She bought the medicine anyway. If she had to play the part of a loving wife to get the truth, she would. The doorbell rang sharply in the quiet apartment. Footsteps, and then the door creaked open. Alexei stood there in sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt, hair messy, face pale. "Aliona," he said, "surprised you're early. I thought you'd be here after lunch." He hugged her awkwardly and she caught it immediately, a faint trail of perfume, not his, a woman's. "Expensive. I took the first train," she said, stepping inside, scanning the apartment. "How are you feeling?" "I brought medicine." The place was tidy, but something felt off. There were new throw pillows on the couch, bright and unfamiliar. A fresh bouquet of flowers stood in a vase she never used. Aliona had never bought pillows like those, never once put flowers in that vase. "Thanks. I'm feeling better already," Alexei said, taking the bag of medicine from her hands. "How's Mom? Any updates on recovery?" Aliona took off her coat and walked into the kitchen. By the sink, on the dish rack, 2 coffee mugs. One had a faint pink lipstick stain on the rim. 6 months, at least, she said steadily. The way did you have guests?" Alexei froze, just for a second. Then he shrugged casually. "A colleague dropped by last night. Brought some documents for the project." "A woman?" she asked, motioning toward the mug with the lipstick. "Marina from marketing," he answered too fast. "We're prepping a presentation for the French team. Want some coffee?" Aliona nodded and sat down at the table. A strange calm settled over her, like she wasn't even in her own body, just watching from the outside. "Tell me how your mom's rehab is going," Alexei said as he started the coffee machine. "The doctors are hopeful. Nina Sergeyevna asks about you every day," Alina replied coolly. "She always says, 'When will he come visit?' I don't know what to tell her anymore." Alexei looked down, guilt flickering in his eyes. "You know how important this contract is," he muttered. "If everything works out, I'll take some time off, a week, maybe 2. Just need to finish up some documents." He placed a cup of coffee in front of her and sat across the table. His phone vibrated. Without thinking, he flipped it over screen down, but Aliona had already seen it, a name, Christina, followed by a heart emoji. "I need to call your mum," she said, quietly, reaching for a phone. She stood up slowly, her voice calm but strained. "I said I'd let you know when I was coming. Can I use the landline? My phone died on the way." "Of course," Alexei nodded, gesturing toward the bedroom. "It's in there. I'm going to take a shower." The bedroom greeted Aliona with a dim, eerie stillness. The curtains were tightly drawn, but it wasn't the darkness that unsettled her. She turned on the light and froze. On the bedside table, on her side of the bed, stood a bottle of perfume, not hers. Next to it lay a sparkling hairclip, covered in rhinestones, so unlike anything she owned. Her stomach twisted. From the bathroom she heard the water begin to run. The sound was distant, muffled by the thick dread sinking into her chest. Moving stiffly, as if in a dream, she opened the wardrobe. Nestled between her clothes were foreign blouses, dresses. In the drawer meant for her lingerie, delicate lace, sets that didn't belong to her. A cold wave of nausea surged. Her knees trembled. So this was why Alexei hadn't wanted to visit his mother. This was why he was so relieved when she left. Another woman had been living here. In their home, in their bed. The landline sat quietly on a small table near the bed. Aliona picked up the receiver, hand shaking, and began dialing Vera's number. But before the call connected, voices floated in from the hallway, low, heated, unmistakably urgent. She froze. Alexei's voice was sharp, nearly a whisper but furious. "I told you not to come today. My wife's here." "I forgot something yesterday," a woman replied, her tone defensive. "How was I supposed to know she'd show up without warning?" "She said she was coming." "Sure, but you told me after lunch. I thought you'd be gone by now," he hissed. "Just get your things and go." "I thought I could," the woman snapped back. "I didn't know she'd be here already." Aliona pressed her back to the wall, her heart pounding so violently it hurt. It was true, all of it, while she was at his mother's side, sacrificing time, career, herself. Alexei had another woman here. A secret life, a double betrayal. "Keep your voice down," he whispered. "She's in the bedroom. Leave now. I'll call you later." "And then what?" the woman Christina said coldly. "You'll lie again. Say you're busy with the French investors." "Christina, not now," Alexei growled. "Just go." "I'm pregnant," she said suddenly. 2 months, and I'm tired of hiding in hallways." Silence, heavy and suffocating. Then, Alexei cursed under his breath. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," Christina replied. "We need to decide what happens next, together." A pause. Then came his chilling answer. "There's only one solution." Aliona's hands turned cold as ice. "We'll place my mother in a care facility. I've already looked into it. She won't cope with the stress of a divorce just yet. If it stabilizes, I'll file. It won't take more than a couple of months." Aliona's legs almost gave out. Her breath came in shallow gasps. He was planning to get rid of them both. Not just her, but his own mother. She stumbled back to the phone, fighting tears, and dialed again. Vera picked up. "Vera, it's Aliona," she whispered, voice cracking. "It's all true. It's even worse than we thought." Through the broken sobs, she explained everything she'd just heard. "I knew he didn't value his Mother, Vera said bitterly, but this ... this is vile. What are you going to do? I don't know, Aliona admitted honestly, but I will talk to him. He needs to know I heard everything. After hanging up, she stood still for a moment. Her shoulders trembled, her cheeks wet, but somewhere in the blur of heartbreak, anger lit a spark, a quiet, unwavering resolve. Enough of sacrificing for someone who never deserved it. Enough of being the one who gave while he took. Enough of being invisible. She walked out into the living room. Alexei looked up from his phone, startled by her swollen eyes and pale face. What's wrong? He asked, springing to his feet. Is it my mom? Has she gotten worse? No, Aliona said softly, but her voice carried steel beneath the sorrow. She's the same, but things will get worse for her when she finds out her beloved son is shipping her off like old furniture. His face drained of color. What are you talking about? He laughed nervously. That's crazy. I heard everything. Aliona interrupted. Come and clear you, Christina, the baby, the plan for the nursing home, the divorce. Alexia froze, scrambling for words. You misunderstood. I would never stop. Her voice was firmer now. Enough lies. I'm done. I'm leaving. I'll pack my things, and you can stop pretending. She turned to go, but he grabbed her wrist. Wait, please, let's talk. It's not what it looks like. Then tell me, she snapped bitterly, yanking her arm free. Tell me how I misunderstood you living with another woman in my home. Tell me how plotting to abandon your mother and divorce me is just one big misunderstanding. He exploded suddenly, his mask cracking. You don't care about me, he barked. You left me alone, completely focused on my mother. Who's thinking about my needs? Who's taking care of me? Aliona looked at him as though seeing him for the first time. This man, this stranger whom she had loved for 3 years, for whom she had given everything, was now just a hollow echo of the person she once believed in. If you had ever valued me, she whispered, you would have been the one taking care of us. And with that, she walked away. I wouldn't be looking for someone else, if you were ever there when I needed you, Alexei continued, his voice trembling with restrained anger. You're always chasing your career, never by my side. And now, you've even gotten into it with my mother. The sharp sound of the front door opening cut his tirade short. A young blonde woman stepped into the apartment. Was her the same woman from the restaurant photo? She froze in place when she saw Alina. I'm sorry, I thought you were alone, she said softly, eyes darting between Alexei and Alina. No, Christina, you came at just the right time, Alina replied before Alexei could say a word. Right. Then, Alexei's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, annoyed until he saw the caller ID. His face went pale. It's the hospital, he whispered. The ward where Mom is. Alina's heart dropped. The call was brief. Alexei didn't say a word, just listened, his face growing grayer by the second. She's had a second stroke, he finally said, his voice barely audible. The doctors say it's critical. Then he turned to Alina, his face twisted in bitterness. This is your fault. You abandoned her and over here just to make a scene. Don't, Alina said quietly but firmly. Don't you dare blame me for what you did. She turned and walked out without another word. For the first time in 3 years, the fog had cleared. She finally saw the truth. The train sped through the twilight, carrying Alina back to the quiet provincial town. The scenery outside the window blurred into nothingness. She didn't see any of it. All she could see was the apartment, Alexei's cruel face, Christina's stunned expression, and the blow of that second stroke that had sliced through her, like a blade. The train rattled gently over the tracks, lulling most passengers to sleep, but not Alina. Her thoughts spun like a storm, sharp, painful, relentless. 3 years, she thought. 3 years I believed in us, in love, in family. And how could I have been so blind? Her phone vibrated. A message from Vera. Nina's in ICU. They won't let anyone in. I'm at the hospital, waiting for you. Alina closed her eyes. Poor Nina Sergeyevna, she didn't deserve this. She had given everything for her son, and how had he repaid her? The thought that Alexei had planned to send his mother to a nursing home still made her stomach turn. How could someone be so cold? To the very person who raised him. It was well past midnight when the train finally arrived. The town slept. Empty streets stretched ahead, lit only by flickering lamps. A biting wind howled through the silence, but Alina barely felt it. Inside, she was colder. The taxi brought her to the hospital in minutes. The reception area was dimly lit, the air heavy with disinfectant. Vera sat hunched on a plastic chair outside the on-call doctor's office, arms wrapped around herself. Alinoshka, she whispered, looking up with tired eyes. You came. Alina sank into the chair beside her, every ounce of strength gone. How is she? She asked in a breath. Vera shook her head. Doctors aren't saying much. Just that it's serious but stable. No one's allowed in. Maybe tomorrow morning, they said, we can visit for a few minutes. And Alexei? Alina asked, though she already knew. He called, said he was on his way. Vera replied with a bitter half smile. That was 6 hours ago. So he should have arrived. But you see, they sat in silence, broken only by muffled nurse voices and the distant beeping of machines. The quiet crept into every corner, thick and suffocating. And then Alina broke. The tears came hard, shaking her body. Vera wordlessly pulled her into a comforting hug. He betrayed us both, Alina choked out between sobs. All this time he had another woman, she's pregnant, and he wanted to put his mother in a home, said she was a burden. Vera said nothing, just held her tighter. Sometimes silence carries more comfort than any words ever could. Morning came too soon. A rustle in the corridor woke them, necks stiff, eyes swollen from a sleepless night. They'd stayed there all night on those hard chairs. Alexei walked in, sharply dressed, flawless as ever. Not a trace of weariness, not a shadow of worry except in his eyes. "How's Mom?" he asked, without even glancing at Alina. "Critical, but stable," Vera answered. "They said we can see her at 8 a.m. for 5 minutes. Alexei nodded and took a seat across from them, burying himself in his phone. The silence between the three of them thickened, almost tangible. At exactly 7:58, the doctor walked in. Alina recognized him. It was the same man she had spoken to the day she first arrived. He looked tired, but his voice was steady. "Relatives of Nina Sergeyevna." Alexei jumped up. "I'm her son. How is she?" The doctor gave him a measured look, then turned to Alina. "And you?" "I was married to her son," Alina said, hesitating on the word "was." "The patient's condition has stabilized," the doctor said, "but the second stroke was more severe than the first. There's damage to the speech center. It's hard to say how much recovery is possible." "When will she be discharged?" Alexei asked. The doctor didn't answer immediately. He looked between them again. "That depends," he finally said, "on whether she has someone to care for her once she leaves." "Has the doctor said when she can be discharged?" Alexei asked, his voice laced with impatience. The doctor frowned. "It's too early to talk about discharge. Right now, stabilizing her condition is the priority. After that she'll require long-term rehabilitation. She remain in the hospital for at least a month, and then specialized care will be necessary." Alexei didn't hesitate. "Can we arrange a private facility? I know a good one." Alyona gasped, staring at him in disbelief. "How can you talk about that right now?" The doctor glanced between them, clearly uncomfortable. "I suggest you visit the patient first, then you can make any decisions. You may go in one at a time," he added. "No more than 5 minutes." Alexei moved forward quickly, but the doctor raised a hand to stop him. "She asked to see her daughter Rila first," he said, turning to Alyona. "She's conscious, but her speech is limited." Alyona nodded silently and followed the doctor down the sterile corridor into the dimly lit ICU. The sharp scent of antiseptics, the beeping monitors, and the soft humming of machines created a surreal atmosphere. She paused for a moment to steady her breath. Nina Sergeyevna lay motionless on the elevated hospital bed, surrounded by tubes and wires. Her face had grown pale and sunken, her skin ashened up her eyes. Those sharp, knowing eyes still burned with an intensity that stopped Alyona in her tracks. "Nina Sergeyevna," she whispered, carefully taking her hand. "How are you feeling?" Her mother-in-law gave a weak squeeze and tried to speak. The words came painfully slow, but Alyona heard them. "You saw him?" Alyona nodded, understanding she was asking about her son. "Yes, he's here, waiting outside." Nina Sergeyevna slowly shook her head, and tears welled in her eyes. "No. You know," she struggled to say. "You know everything." Alyona froze, her heart pounded in her chest. "She knows." "I know," she answered quietly. "I know about Christina, about the child, about the care home." Tears slid down the older woman's hollow cheeks as she closed her eyes. When she looked at Alyona again, her expression was filled with aching sorrow. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It's my fault. I let him get away with everything." Alyona shook her head, her own tears falling freely now. "No, please, don't blame yourself. This is his doing, his choices." "I always knew," Nina Sergeyevna murmured, "knew what he was. After his father died, I spoiled him, forgave everything. I raised a selfish man." The heart monitor quickened. She clutched Alyona's hand with sudden strength. "Leave him," she said clearly. "Don't waste your life. You're a good woman, you deserve better." Alyona sat in stunned silence. The words didn't seem real. This was the same woman who had always defended her son, always put him first, and now she was giving Alyona permission to walk away. No, she was begging her to. "What about you?" Alyona asked, her voice barely audible. "What will happen to you? I'll manage." Nina Sergeyevna replied with a faint smile. "I always have." The doctor appeared in the doorway. "Time's up," he said gently. "She needs rest." But Nina Sergeyevna raised a frail hand, signaling him to wait. Then she looked back at Alyona one last time. "Let him in. I want to speak to him." Alyona leaned down, kissed her on the forehead, and left the room. In the hallway, Alexei was pacing nervously. As soon as he saw her, he snapped, "Finally. What did she say to you?" "She's waiting," Alyona replied softly. "Go." Alexei hurried past her into the room. Alyona sank onto the chair beside Vera, a strange sense of lightness beginning to rise in her chest. It was as if the burden she had carried for so many years had finally begun to lift. "What did she say?" Vera asked gently. Vera looked at Alina intently. "You knew all along, didn't you?" Alina's voice was barely above a whisper. "I knew everything. That I'd raised him into an egoist, and that I needed to leave him." Vera raised her brows in quiet surprise but didn't say a word. They sat in silence, listening to the distant hum from the hospital room until it was shattered. "Can't do this to me. This is my apartment." Alexei's furious voice thundered from behind the door. A moment later, it burst open. He stormed out, red-faced and wild-eyed, practically shaking with rage. He jabbed a finger at Alina. "You turned her against me. What did you say to her?" A doctor rushed out behind him. "That's enough," he said sharply. "You're in a hospital. There are critically ill patients here." But Alexei wasn't listening. He was in full outburst now. "She cut me out of her will. Said she's giving the apartment to you. This is all you're doing. You planned this." Alina stared at him in disbelief. This man, this explosive, irrational stranger, was her husband, the same man she had loved for 3 years. "I didn't even know about the apartment," she said quietly. "And I never asked her for anything." "Liar," he hissed. "You were always manipulative. You weaseled your way into her trust, and now you want to take everything." Vera rose from her seat, her tone composed but firm. "Young man, calm yourself. Your shouting will hurt your mother more than her stroke ever could. And who even are you?" Alexei turned on her, livid. "Sitting here with your advice, stay out of this." "I'm someone who's known your mother for 30 years, Vera replied coolly. "If she made this decision, she had her reasons." Two security guards approached, drawn by the commotion. One of them eyed Alexei carefully. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. The doctor shook his head. "He's reacting emotionally to his mother's condition. But he needs to calm down, preferably outside." Alexei glared at them all, then abruptly turned and stormed down the hall. "This isn't over," he snarled over his shoulder. "I'm not letting this go." Only when the echo of his footsteps faded did Alina realize she'd been holding her breath. Her whole body had been tense, braced for impact. Now, she finally exhaled. "May I see Nina Sergeyevna again?" she asked the doctor. He hesitated, then nodded. "Only for a minute. She needs rest after all this." Nina lay with her eyes closed, but when Alina entered, they fluttered open. She smiled faintly. "Don't be afraid of him," she whispered. "The apartment, it's yours. You've earned it." "Nina Sergeyevna, I never wanted it," Alina murmured. "I didn't do this for that." "I know," Nina interrupted softly. "You're a good person." I was not a good mother. I raised a monster." Alina gently stroked her hand. "You're not a bad mother. You loved him. That's not a crime. Love shouldn't look like that," Nina whispered. "I see it now and I'll fix what I can." When Alina left the room, she felt something she hadn't in years. Lightness, like a heavy burden, had finally melted from her shoulders. The truth had hurt, but it had also set her free. "Where to now?" Vera asked as they stepped out into the sunlit street. Morning lights sparkled on the quiet little town. Alina squinted against the brightness, watching people move through their routines. The spring sky a brilliant, hopeful blue. "I don't know," she said honestly. "But for the first time in a long while, I feel like I can begin again." Her phone buzzed in her pocket. An unfamiliar number. Local area code. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." Alina came a confident male voice. "This is Mikhail, your neighbor. We met when you were leaving the apartment. I helped with your suitcase, remember?" She vaguely recalled the tall man she'd bumped into in the hallway. "Course," she replied. "How can I help?" "I work at Megapolis Media. I saw your resume in our database. We've got an opening for a PR manager, and I'd love to talk about a potential opportunity." Alina froze for a second, barely trusting her ears. Could life really be giving her a second chance? "Who is it?" Vera asked, in a whisper, curious about Alina's sudden change in expression. "I think it's my future," Alina replied softly, a smile forming despite herself. The big city greeted her with its noise, its rush, its indifferent energy. After the quiet rhythm of the provincial town, it all felt too fast, too loud, too unfamiliar. She stood at the train station plaza with her suitcase, unsure where to go. Going back to Alexei's apartment was out of the question, even with the inheritance now in her name. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Vera. "How is the trip? Nina stable? She sends her love and says not to worry." Alina smiled. In those 2 weeks at the hospital, she had grown closer to 2 women she never expected to. Vera, now a trusted friend, and Nina Sergeyevna, revealed at last, not as the cold matriarch Alexei had painted, but as a woman finally shedding old shadows. Returning to the city hadn't been easy, but it was necessary. The interview at Megapolis Media couldn't be missed. Chances to start over don't come twice. She dialed the number of the only person she still trusted in this city. "Natasha, it's me. Can I crash at your place tonight?" An hour later, she sat in her friend's cozy kitchen, warming her hands on a mug of hot tea. Outside, a gentle spring rain tapped against the windows like a quiet drum roll. "So, is it over?" Natasha asked. Alina looked out at the rain and gave the faintest nod. "No," she said with a soft smile. "It's just beginning." Natasha looked at Alina intently. "So, it's true." Alina nodded. "Yes, the divorce is just a matter of time. The paperwork is already in progress." "And the apartment?" Vera said. "Your mother-in-law signed it over to you." "She did," Alina replied with a faint smile. "But I'm not sure I want to live there. Too many memories. You could rent it out." "Live off the income," Natasha said practically. "And in the meantime, you'll stay with me." The couch in the living room is yours. Alina squeezed her friend's hand in gratitude. Tomorrow, I have an interview at Megapolis Media. I'm hoping it works out. Natasha gave a low whistle. Serious company. Our competitor, actually. How'd you land an interview there? Alina told her about the strange phone call from Mikhail. A neighbor, you said. Natasha narrowed her eyes with curiosity. And what does this mysterious neighbor look like? I don't really remember, Alina admitted honestly. Tall, I think, dark hair. At the time, I wasn't exactly paying attention. Morning arrived clear and bright, as if the world itself was promising Alina a fresh start. She dressed in a formal suit, styled her hair carefully, and made her way to the address. The Megapolis Media office was inside a sleek, modern business center, glass, chrome, and marble. In the lobby, a cheerful security guard checked her ID and handed her a visitor badge. 14th floor. Office 1402, he said. They're expecting you. The office surprised her. No gray cubicles, no dull lighting, instead open space, natural light, vibrant decor. Young professionals worked quietly, the smell of fresh coffee hanging in the air. Alina Sergeyevna, a receptionist, called out. Mikhail Andreevich is waiting in the meeting room. Would you like coffee or tea? Coffee, please, Alina smiled. Finally starting to feel her nerves settle, Mikhail was just as she half remembered him, tall, broad-shouldered, warm brown eyes, and a bit of silver in his beard. He looked to be in his 30s, with smile, lines that hinted at someone who laughed often. Glad to see you, Alina, he said, shaking her hand. Have a seat. How was the trip from? He hesitated, not wanting to seem like he knew too much. From the provinces, she offered. It was fine. Thank you. The interview went smoother than she expected. Mikhail asked direct but respectful questions, listening closely and occasionally nodding. As the minutes passed, her nervousness melted into professional confidence. Your resume is impressive, Mikhail said after reviewing her experience, especially your project with Technostar. We've been looking for someone with your background in tech. I should admit, Alina said carefully, I've been out of practice. The last few months, I was caring for my sick mother-in-law. Mikhail nodded with quiet understanding. That speaks volumes about your character. Business isn't just contracts and numbers, it's also about people. Those who know how to care for others often become the best leaders. An hour later, Alina walked out of the office with a signed contract in her bag. She'd been hired as a senior PR manager with a salary higher than her previous job. She had 1 week to get everything in order before starting. Let me treat you to lunch to celebrate, Mikhail offered, walking her to the elevator. There's a great place right next door. Over lunch, the conversation gradually shifted away from work. I know you've been through a difficult time recently, Mikhail said gently. I don't want to overstep, but if you need help finding a place, settling in the company, can support you. Alina studied him closely. How do you know about my personal situation? Mikhail looked slightly uncomfortable and averted his gaze. I knew Alexa. We went to the same university. Not close friends, but mutual acquaintances. When your resume crossed my desk, I recognized the name right away. And you offered me the job out of pity? Alina asked, suddenly tense. No, Mikhail said firmly. Out of professionalism. Your experience speaks for itself. Your personal life has nothing to do with the hiring decision. He paused, then added in a quieter tone, though I'll admit it felt good offering the position to Alexei's wife. He was always a bit arrogant. They both laughed, the tension dissolving between them. The lunch stretched longer than expected, the conversation flowing easily. Alina was surprised to find herself feeling comfortable at ease with a man, maybe for the first time in a long while. As they stepped out of the restaurant, a little girl, no more than 6, ran toward them. She had dark braids and sparkling blue eyes. Papa, she cried, throwing her arms around Mikhail. You promised we'd go to the park. A moment later, an elderly woman came hurrying behind her. I'm sorry, Mikhail Andreevich, she said, catching her breath. Sonia insisted we come find you. It's all right, Maria Petrovna, Mikhail replied with a warm smile. Alina stood still, watching. Something shifted in her heart, not pain, not jealousy. Hope. Mikhail smiled warmly as he lifted his daughter into his arms. I really did promise, he said gently. Alyona, let me introduce you to my daughter, Sonia, and our nanny, Maria Petrovna. The little girl studied Alyona with open curiosity. You're pretty, she declared suddenly. Your eyes, they're like the princess from my storybook. Alyona laughed, surprised at how quickly the child's words warmed her heart. Thank you, Sonia, and you have beautiful eyes too. Papa always says they look like Mama's. Sonia said, seriously, are you coming to the park with us? Mikhail looked a bit embarrassed. Sonia, Alyona probably has other plans. Actually, I don't, Alyona said with a smile. I'd love to go, if the invitation still stands. The park was alive with people. Young parents pushing strollers, elderly couples enjoying the breeze, children laughing on the playground. Sonia darted from swing to slide and back again, while Mikhail and Alyona strolled nearby, talking quietly. My wife passed away 2 years ago, Mikhail said softly when their conversation drifted toward Sonia. Cancer. It happened so fast, we barely had time to say goodbye. I'm so sorry, Alyona said, her voice full of genuine sympathy. Sonia was 4. She remembers her, but the memories are fading sometimes. It terrifies me that one day she won't remember her mother's face at all. They sat on a bench, watching as Sonia swung higher and higher under the nanny's gentle watch. You know what's hardest about being a single parent? Mikhail asked, his tone quiet. It's not the exhaustion, not the lack of time. It's having no one to share the joy with. When Sonia read her first word, or drew something special, I had no one to turn to and say, look what she did. Alona sat in silence, moved by the honesty of this strong, but vulnerable man. Sorry, Mikhail added, catching himself. I don't know why I'm telling you all this. I don't usually talk like this with people I barely know. It's okay, Alyona said gently. Sometimes it's easier to open up to someone who's almost a stranger. Sonia ran back to them, cheeks flushed, eyes glowing. Papa, can I have ice cream, please? Just one, Mikhail said with mock sternness, and no chocolate. You know it hurts your throat. Can Alyona choose? Sonia asked slyly. Grown-up girls always know which flavor's best. Alyona laughed. I think vanilla with caramel syrup. See, Papa, Sonia said triumphantly. Alyona's smart. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in amber tones, they reluctantly left the park. Near the metro station, Mikhail turned to her. Would you like to have dinner with us? Nothing fancy, just home-cooked food. I'd love to, Alyona replied, surprised at how easily the words came. Mikhail's apartment was warm and filled with life, not luxurious but lived in. The kind of home where walls held stories, children's drawings pinned up shelves, crammed with books instead of decorations. I usually cook myself, Mikhail said, tying on an apron. It's nothing gourmet, but Sonia doesn't complain. I can help, Alyona offered. I'm not bad in the kitchen. Sonia pulled out a notebook from her school bag. I have homework, she announced seriously. Math. Papa says math is fun, but I don't think so. Let's take a look, Alyona said, sitting beside her. Maybe we'll find something fun in those numbers together. By the time Mikhail called them to dinner, the homework was finished, and Sonia was animatedly telling Alyona all about her shell collection. After Sonia was tucked into bed, Alyona and Mikhail remained in the kitchen. Through the open window drifted the faint sounds of a sleeping city. Somewhere in the distance, a soft melody played. Thank you for today, Alyona said quietly. It's been a long time since I've felt this free. Mikhail met her gaze. Alyona, I know you've been through a lot, and maybe now isn't the perfect time for something new, but I'd really like to see you again, not just as a colleague. Her heart beat faster, fear, doubt, but also hope, and something even more fragile, anticipation. I'd like that, too, she said simply. The next few days flew by in a whirlwind: apartment hunting, paperwork, preparations for her new job. Alyona visited her mother-in-law and Vera often. They were slowly becoming real family. Nina Sergeyevna was recovering. The doctors even mentioned a possible discharge in a month. Alyona tried not to think about Alexei, but the city was too small to avoid him forever. It happened just as she stepped out of her new office after her first day of work. He was there, standing by the entrance. We need to talk, he snapped, skipping any greeting. We have nothing to talk about, Alyona said, calm and steady. Our lawyers will handle everything. You ruined my life, Alexei hissed, grabbing her wrist. You turned my own mother against me, took the apartment, and now you're working for my enemy. Was this your plan all along? Let go of me, Alyona said firmly, pulling her arm free. And don't you ever touch me again. I won't let you walk away that easily, he growled. You think you've won. You won't get away with this, I'll make sure of it. It's all right, came a calm voice nearby. Alexei turned and flinched. Mikhail stood there, steady and silent. Oh, now it makes sense, Alexei sneered. So this is it. You're trying to steal my wife, Mikhail. You think I'll just stand by? Alyona is no longer your wife, Mikhail said evenly. And I suggest you walk away before I call security. Alexei glared at them both with a hatred that burned, but then spun on his heel and stalked off without another word. Mikhail turned to her. Are you okay? ChatGPT said. Mikhail's voice was soft, almost a whisper as Alexei disappeared from view. Are you all right? Alyona nodded slowly. The tremble that had gripped her body for days was finally leaving. In its place, a strange calm settled over her, deep, steady, unfamiliar. She was no longer afraid of Alexei, no longer afraid of his threats or manipulations. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt safe and free. You know, she said to Mikhail, her voice quiet but firm, I think I'm starting a new life, and I like it. He smiled without saying a word, but in that smile Alyona saw a silent promise. The best was still ahead. The autumn morning was grey and drizzly. Alyona stood by the window of her new apartment, the one she rented after the divorce, and watched as people hurried past the puddles below. Today was the final court hearing, the last step in closing the chapter on her marriage to Alexei. A neat stack of legal documents sat on the coffee table, prepared by her lawyer. In the 3 months since that unforgettable day when her world turned upside down, everything had changed. A new job at Megapolis Media, new friends, a new home, and Mikhail and his daughter Sonia, who, piece by piece, had become part of her heart. Her phone rang. On the screen flashed her lawyer's name. "Good morning, Alyona Sergeyevna," came the composed male voice. "Just a reminder, the hearing is scheduled for 11 a.m. Alexei has filed a counterclaim for emotional damages. He's accusing you of manipulating his mother's illness to gain control of the apartment." Alyona sighed. Of course Alexei wouldn't back down quietly. "That's absurd," she said calmly. "Nina Sergeyevna made that decision herself." "Yes," the lawyer agreed, "and we have her notarized statement, but he's arguing she was mentally unfit due to her condition. Be prepared for a scene." The doorbell rang. Alyona quickly ended the call and went to answer it. On the doorstep stood Mikhail, holding a bouquet of wildflowers. He smiled warmly. "Thought you might need some moral support today," he said. "I can take you to court if you'd like." Alyona accepted the flowers, her eyes soft with gratitude. Over the past few months their bond had grown slowly, gently, without pressure. Mikhail never rushed her, understanding she needed time to heal. They spent weekends together, often with Sonia, who had grown deeply attached to her aunt Alyona. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea how much this means to me." The courthouse corridor was crowded and loud. Alyona's lawyer, Sergei Viktorovich, was already waiting by the courtroom door. "Good afternoon," he greeted them, shaking Mikhail's hand. "Alexei is already inside with his attorney. I must warn you he's ready to fight." "So, are we?" Alyona replied, her voice steady. The courtroom loomed large, its high ceilings and dark wood panels casting an almost theatrical weight. Alyona took her seat beside her lawyer, avoiding Alexei's eyes across the aisle, but she could feel his gaze, burning, hateful. The judge, a middle-aged woman with sharp, intelligent eyes, opened the session. Alyona listened to the lawyer speak, answered questions when asked, but it all felt distant, like she was watching a movie about someone else's life. In regards to the counterclaim, Alexei's lawyer began. "Our client asserts that Alyona Sergeyevna deliberately manipulated his mother, exploiting her fragile health to convince her to transfer ownership of the apartment. He believes the mother was not in a clear mental state when she altered her will." "I object," Sergei Viktorovich interjected. "We have notarized testimony from Nina Sergeyevna herself, as well as a medical evaluation confirming she was fully competent when she made her decision." Alyona clenched her fists under the table. Rage surged within her. How could Alexei twist things this way? How could he speak of his own mother as if she were just an obstacle? He called it manipulation, when all Nina Sergeyevna had done was, finally, see her son for who he really was. "Miss Alyona Sergeyevna," the judge turned to her. "Can you explain why Nina Sergeyevna chose to gift you the apartment instead of her son?" Alyona took a deep breath, steadying her voice. "She made that choice after learning the truth, that while I was caring for her after her stroke, Alexei was cheating on me. That he was planning his words, not mine, to get rid of the two burdens me, through divorce, and her, by placing her in a care facility without her consent." The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Alexei went pale, hissing something frantically to his lawyer. "That's slander," his attorney shouted, leaping to his feet. "She has no proof of such statements." "On the contrary," Sergei Viktor replied calmly. "We have a witness, Vera Petrovna Sokolova, a longtime neighbor of Nina Sergeyevna. She overheard multiple conversations between mother and son and is prepared to testify." Just then, the courtroom doors creaked open. Everyone turned. In the doorway stood Vera, pushing a wheelchair. In it sat Nina Sergeyevna, thinner, weaker, but unmistakably present. Her face was pale but firm, her gaze clear. "Apologies for the delay, Your Honor," Vera said respectfully. "Our flight was delayed due to the weather." Alexei sprang to his feet, his voice shaking. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Nina Sergeyevna's voice, though raspy, rang through the courtroom like a bell. "What I should have done a long time ago. I am," Nina Sergeyevna replied firmly. Her voice still carried the faint stiffness of recent illness, but every word was deliberate, unmistakable. "I am correcting my mistakes." The judge hesitated for a moment, clearly taken aback, but then gave her permission to testify. Vera wheeled Nina Sergeyevna up to the witness stand. "You understand that you're under oath and must speak only the truth?" the judge asked. "I do," Nina Sergeyevna nodded, "and that's exactly why I'm here." She took a deep breath. "The truth is, my son Alexei, the boy I loved more than life itself, grew into a selfish man, and that's my fault. After my husband passed, I spoiled him. I gave in to his every whim. I ignored the things I should have confronted." Her gaze shifted to Alexei, who sat slouched in his seat, his head bowed. "When I got sick, Elena gave up her career to take care of me, and Alexei, he didn't even come visit. Instead, he brought another woman into our home while his wife was nursing his mother." She turned back to the judge. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "Transferred my apartment to Elena not because she manipulated me, but because it was the only way I could make things right. This young woman gave 3 years of her life to a man who never deserved her, and 6 more months to care for me. She earned that apartment with love, with sacrifice." Nina Sergeyevna paused, swallowing hard. "And my son?" Her eyes glistened, but her voice didn't break. "My son earned a lesson. One, I hope he finally understands that everything in life has a price. Maybe this will be what finally helps him become better at least. I hope so. The courtroom fell silent. Alexei sat with his eyes downcast, his attorney fumbling with papers, clearly at a loss for how to respond. The judge spoke again. Nina Sergeyevna, can you confirm that you were of sound mind and acting of your own free will when you transferred the apartment to Alina Sergeyevna? I can confirm it fully, she said with firm conviction. And I also want to state for the record that I completely support Elena's decision to file for divorce. My son's claims for financial compensation are baseless. After Nina Sergeyevna's testimony, the outcome of the case was no longer in question. The court ruled in Elena's favor, granting the divorce and rejecting Alexei's countersuit. The apartment legally remained hers. Outside the courtroom, Alexei caught up with him in the hallway. Congratulations, he muttered bitterly to Mikhail. You stole my wife. And my property. Enough, Alexei, Elena said quietly but firmly. It's over. I didn't steal anything from you. Everything that's happened is the result of your own choices. And you, Mom. Alexei turned to his mother, eyes burning. How could you do this to me, your own son? I didn't betray you, she said softly. You betrayed yourself. With your selfishness, and I still love you, son. That's why I did this, not out of revenge but out of love. One day you'll understand. Alexei looked at them with a mix of fury and pain, but something in his mother's voice seemed to slip past his rage. He turned and walked away, fast and without another word. Do you think he'll ever change? Alina asked, watching him disappear down the corridor. I don't know, Nina Sergeyevna sighed. But for the first time in his life, my son is facing the consequences of his actions. Maybe this is the start. That evening, they gathered in a small, warm restaurant near the courthouse. Elena, Mikhail, Sonia, Nina Sergeyevna, and Vera weren't just celebrating a legal victory, they were celebrating the beginning of a new chapter. Vera and I have decided to live together, Nina Sergeyevna announced, drawing surprised smiles. What? Two old ladies have more fun together, she said with a grin. Her house is bigger than my apartment. There's a garden, we'll plant flowers, complain about the youth, and drink tea on the porch. Everyone laughed. Sonia, who already called her grandma Nina, sat close beside her, excitedly talking about her latest school projects. And how's the new job going? Vera asked Elena. I love it, Elena said genuinely. The team is amazing. The projects are exciting. And for the first time in a long while, I feel like me again, not just someone's wife. Mikhail, sitting beside her, gently took her hand under the table. I have an idea, he said. How about a weekend trip out of town? The weather's supposed to be nice. We could go for a walk in the woods, grill some kebabs. Yay, Sonia exclaimed. Can I bring my new ball? Of course, sweetheart. Elena smiled. Just don't forget your warm jacket, it gets chilly in the forest this time of year. Nina Sergeyevna and Vera exchanged a look. They didn't need words. It was clear Elena and Mikhail belonged together, a calm, dependable man and a strong, kind-hearted woman, and little Sonia who finally had a chance at the loving family she deserved. Later that night, after Nina Sergeyevna and Vera had returned to their hotel, and Sonia had fallen asleep in the back seat, Mikhail drove Elena home. As they stood near her building, she turned to him. Do you want to come in? We could have some tea. In her small but cozy apartment, warmth lingered in the air. Elena set the kettle on the stove while Mikhail stood by the window, gazing out over the quiet city lights. What are you thinking about? She asked gently. She stepped closer and asked softly. Have you ever thought about how strange life can be? He looked at her, his voice low, almost like a secret. Just 6 months ago, we were complete strangers. And now I can't even imagine how I lived without you all this time. Elena smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. For the first time in what felt like forever, she was truly happy. You know, she whispered, her voice barely audible. When I found out about Alexei's betrayal, it felt like my life was over. She paused, breathing in deeply. But it turns out it was only just beginning. Mikhail gently took her hands in his. Elena, he began, his words slow, deliberate. I know it might still be too soon. He hesitated, trying to find the right words. Sonia asks me every day when you'll come back to us, and I realize I'm waiting just as much as she is. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. It's not an engagement ring, he said quickly, noticing the surprise in her eyes. It's just a gift, a symbol, a beginning, a new chapter. If you're ready. Elena opened the box. Inside lay a delicate silver ring with a small diamond, not extravagant, but breathtaking in its simplicity. I'm ready, she whispered, sliding the ring onto her finger. Ready to start over with you. A year later, the four of them, Elena, Mikhail, Sonia, and their newborn son, Andrei, arrived at a familiar garden. Nina Sergeyevna and Vera greeted them with bright smiles, proudly showing off the flower beds they had planted, just as they once dreamed. Look, Andriushka, see the flowers. Sonia beamed, holding her baby brother carefully, while Mikhail watched protectively nearby. When you grow up, I'll teach you the name of every single one. Elena watched this peaceful scene, her heart full. She couldn't believe this was her life now. Who would have thought that such deep betrayal, such crushing pain could lead her here, to real love? and to the family she never dared to imagine. Nina Sergeyevna approached her and gently linked arms. "Are you happy?" she asked quietly. "Very," Elena replied, her voice steady and full of truth. "And you?" The older woman smiled. "I got a letter from Alexei. He's in St. Petersburg now, working at a small company. He started seeing a therapist, trying to make sense of himself." "I'm glad to hear that," Elena said sincerely, and she meant it. She had long let go of any bitterness toward her ex-husband. "I hope he finds his happiness." And Nina Sergeyevna smiled as she looked at Mikhail, cradling baby Andrei in his arms. "We've already found ours." Elena glanced around at her little family, flawed, different, far from perfect but real. The silver ring with a small diamond glinted on her hand. It wasn't luxurious, but it held something far more valuable: real feelings and promises kept. If this story touched your heart, show your support with a like and a subscribe. Share your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. It's what keeps us inspired to bring you more heartfelt stories every day. Take care of yourselves and the people you love. And remember, happiness often begins where you least expect it.